Hey there, welcome to Professor Purl, a YouTube channel about knitting. I'm Nicole and this is episode 37. I have some exciting knitting updates for this episode. I finished a test knit, started a new test knit, I'm almost done with the Shawl Design. There's a make along, the tank top along happening here on this channel, and I have updates about all that. So it feels exciting. And if you're into the knitting YouTube channels where people give you cozy little updates about what they're working on, that's me here. I just like to share what I'm up to. And yeah, this is my porch here in Oregon and in the Pacific Northwest United States, and I'm a math education professor, which is how the channel gets its name, Professor Purl, and I'm on summer break, so I've had lots of fun lately. So anyway, before I hop into all the updates about my knitting, I did want to kind of celebrate that since the last time I recorded an episode and posted it here on YouTube, we've hit 3,000 subscribers. I mean, that's wild to me, and I'm so grateful and excited. And I knew this might be coming, so I decided when Anna from Zebra Yarns was having a sale that I would pick up one of her self-striping yarns since I love it. You can use these for socks. It's 50 grams, so you can make really, if you have long feet or thicker, longer feet, you could make nice little shorties. And some people can make full socks out of 50 grams. So it's a nice sock set. If you're not into socks, there's other fun things you could do with this, like little fingerless mitts. I think if you had or making a baby sweater, maybe you could do little sleeves or something. I think there's just hats. This could be half of a hat maybe, or part of a hat. So there's lots of fun things you can do with self-striping yarn. I tend to just do socks, so I thought this would be, doing a giveaway here might be a fun way to celebrate reaching 3,000 subscribers and to show my gratitude. Okay, so anybody who wants to enter can be entered. If you are living outside the United States, you are still eligible, but I think what I might do is, if you live outside the United States, I might give a Etsy gift card or something like that in lieu of the sock set. But okay, so the prompt, any comment below will count, but I thought it might be nice to ask some questions as a prompt if you want. Have you done any make-alongs on this channel in the past, and what have you enjoyed from them? So I'd love to know that. If you are participating in the tank top make-along, the tank top along is the hashtag. That goes until July 31st. If you're doing that, I'd love to know what tank top you're making. And maybe you're a new subscriber and you haven't done any make-alongs on this channel, and I would love to know what make-alongs you're interested in participating. So that's the question to get you started if you want. But thank you so much. All right, I think we're ready to talk about my one finished object. I was gonna say finished objects plural because I think I was hoping to have more than one finished object, but I've got one finished object. My one finished object is beautiful and is going to be amazing in the fall. And that is the Vintage Vibe Vest by Anna from the Bluebird box. And as soon as she knit this, and I think she knit it in the winter time of 2022, I'm not for sure. As soon as she knit it, I knew I wanted to knit it. And it definitely has a vintage vibe. On her Instagram, she says, in some of the captions, how she was inspired by Daisy Jones and the Six. It's a show, but also a book. I want to read the book really bad. I knit mine out of Cascade 220. I think Cascade 220 is a worsted weight yarn. For a knitting YouTuber, I should have more details, but that yarn was quite old. I don't exactly know when I bought it, but I think it was the summer before I was married and just started graduate school. So I mean, the yarn's 13 or 14 years old. I paired it with some glitter that I got on a road trip last year, and it just made this really cool fabric. The glitter was more hot pink and the yarn was more coral, and so it marled together in an unexpected way. One of the fun things about using like yarns from your collection is that it forces you to think creatively. Like, I would never probably buy coral and hot pink to put together, but I love the effect of how it turned out. And so I think like when you kind of like can add constraints to your making, whatever your constraints are, like whether it's you're just using what you have or some other kind of constraint, it adds a little bit of element of creativity that you might not have had before. And so that was kind of fun for me. So the way that the instructions for the vintage vibe were is, I think it's at 3 inches of negative ease. Negative ease means like if my bust is 38.5 inches around, so 3 inches of negative ease from there would be 38.5 inches minus 3. So that would make a garment that was like 35.5 inches around. So it doesn't exactly close all the way, as you can see. That's how it's supposed to fit, I think. But if you didn't like that, I mean, I was thinking that I might not listen to the negative ease requirement. And sometimes I don't listen to the negative ease requirements. I was like kind of hesitating of saying that because I feel like that's like maybe an unpopular knitting opinion, which is like, if a designer designs something with negative ease, you really should listen to it. Sometimes. Like sometimes you really should, like with a bralette or something like that. But then like sometimes you don't have to. Anyway, I'll stand up so you can get a better look. Okay, that was kind of terrible, like the way I stood up. Maybe I'll have to put some B-roll in here so that you can... Anyway, I really like it. And I don't have a vest like this. I really, really wanted a vest like this in my wardrobe, and I'm so glad I do now. I would knit another one of these, like, for sure. I would knit another one of these. The edging is so simple. I'm not gonna give any details away on the pattern, but it's like the most simple edging I've ever done, which was cool. It was so cool. I could go on and on about it, but I love it. Maybe I'll, here. I was thinking about what's the likelihood of me like recording myself wearing this with a cuter outfit, and I was like pretty low. I haven't even taken finished objects to put on Instagram or Ravelry yet, which adds to my dramatic tester vibe. I feel like in some ways I'm a very good test knitter, and in some ways I feel like terrible. Taking a picture of the finished object, like basic expectation of a test knitter. And I haven't done it yet, and this is out. But anyway, you should go enjoy this pattern. It's lovely, and it's really flexible. You can knit it in DK weight yarn, worsted weight yarn. The main thing is just to get gauge, and I think it's just this great layering piece that's going to be great for transitioning from summer to fall, from winter to spring. Like I love it. And for me, this is a great color. This color is like kind of like a neutral for me. It's going to fit into my wardrobe the way like maybe gray or tan would for other people. Okay, I am going to share the knit that has captured my heart, and it is my newest work in progress and my newest test knit, which is the Barbie Crop by Knitting Ruined My Life. Colorwork crop, I love. If you are a longtime subscriber, you know I love short sleeve sweaters, colorwork sweaters. Like, I've knit 3 Soldana crops by Caitlin Hunter. Like, it's so fun. It's so fun. I had to apply, and I'm so excited to be testing it. Okay, before I show you my yarns, I want to just kind of like share like this thing that I've been talking about like recently about test knitting. I recently put out a video about why I love test knitting, and on my channel a week or two ago. I'm not sure anymore. And as part of that, I shared something that had been kind of an internal goal that I hadn't really explicitly shared, which is I, for my test knits, have been trying to use yarn that I have this year instead of just buying all new yarn. And all of my test knits have exclusively used yarn I already have, and I didn't buy anything new. And for this test knit, the Barbie Crop, that's mostly true, but not totally true. So I kind of like made up the idea that like I wouldn't apply for test knits unless I had the yarn. And I had 2 colors of yarn that I knew that I wanted to use for the Barbie Crop. In my yarn collection, I had the color for the purse and the daisies, and then this like high heel in the center of the daisy. I had 2 colors for that I knew I wanted to use. And so I kind of justified applying because I was like, well, I could use those 2 yarns for my collection and then just buy the body yarn. And that constraint's been really fun because I'm really buying less yarn and using what I have and enjoying what I have. And it has required me to kind of like pivot my expectations for some projects. Like sometimes I get it in my head that like with a particular yarn, I'm going to make this thing. And it's kind of like really like that goal has made me like redefine like the yarns that I'm using. I'm just hearing kind of a noise. Let me share the 2 yarns that I had in my collection that I wanted to use for this. The first is from Leading Men Fiber Arts, and it is the Darkest Hour. I used this color from Leading Men Fiber Arts in my mother's Soldana crop. So my mom had purchased yarn 2 or 3 Christmases ago now, probably 3. Like my husband Kyle and I drove my mother when we were visiting Illinois for Christmas to a yarn store, and she bought yarn to knit a Soldana crop. Then I said to her, what if I knit you that for Christmas? And it took me like two Decembers to make it. I wasn't working on it consistently, but I made it for her finally and sent it to her. And it's really cute. Maybe I'll pop in a picture. But I had some leftover black yarn from that. So I thought, oh, that would be great on the Barbie Crop. Maybe initially I was thinking black high heels, but I ended up pivoting and doing hot pink high heels. But I knew I wanted to use a hot pink. So Tammy, who won a prize here on this channel, I don't even know when, I mail her a prize, and what does she do? She sends me something in the mail back, which included a beautiful skein of yarn from her local yarn store and hand spun she had. And initially I thought I'm going to use her hand spun and that yarn she sent me together. But now I'm pivoting and I'm going to use her hand spun for something else and then use a pink in this sweater because it's just like the perfect Barbie pink. Like you can see, like these 2 look awesome together. They belong together. So Tammy sent me this yarn, and it's from Gnome River Yarns. The colorway is called Petal Pink. I was just looking at what it's like made of. This is 75/25 nylon. My base yarn does not have nylon in it. I'm trying to think. This is just 100% superwash merino, and this is nylon. So this could have been nice for socks, but alas, I'm using it in color work. Maybe I'll have some stuff left over so I can knit some DK weight socks. And I'm thinking I might have some left over for this color work, but I love these 2 together. And when you think of a Barbie crop, you can see like why I was excited for these. So initially I thought I would do the high heels in black and then the daisy pink and then the black center, but I ended up flipping it. And I'm glad I did. You may disagree. You may think I should have done it the other way, but that's how I did it. So kind of a black daisy. I actually have seen a black flower, I think like 2 years ago at the Portland International Test. They have a rose international test garden. I found a black rose. It was really exciting. It was very cool looking. So maybe possible. I just really wanted to do the high heels in pink. Okay, so I needed a base color. And when I was staring at like the black and like thinking about like what I'd want to contrast with it, the thing that popped in my mind immediately was a dye I wanted to knit with for a long time, and that's Wandering Flock. I just knew when I was using that hot pink and the black that I wanted to knit the base in a Wandering Flock color, and there's so many beautiful options that I could have done that would have looked great with the black and the pink, and I had a hard time deciding. So I went to the Wandering Flock website and there was lots of great options, and then I also went online and I searched like stores that have Wandering Flock, and one of the stores that carries Wandering Flock is Wild Hand in Philadelphia, which I visited when I first started this channel at the fall of 2021, and I interviewed the owner. I was like a brand new YouTuber and she let me interview her, and so I have an interview here on this channel. I'll link it below, and it was just a really fun time. And anyway, so I just kind of rekindled those feelings. I loved Wild Hand, I loved Philadelphia, so I was like, okay, I'm going to look at the Wild Hand colors at Wild Hand, like win-win, support a small business, like, you know, a dyer, and also support a yarn store I love. So I bought this from Wild Hand, and it just, Cosmic Tie-Dye was the winner. That's this colorway. And this base is 100% superwash extra fine merino, and I think that actually makes a difference because this base is just, like, I did some swatching and some like blocking of that swatch, and this is just a little bit like softer and it stretches a little bit more than the other yarn. And so anyway, it's beautiful. What I love about the Wandering Flock aesthetic is it's like a neon pastel, and I really feel like this, it's very blown out right here in this picture, so it's like what you're seeing but like a little softer actually, and it is just like stunning. Now, not everybody likes to knit a sweater in variegated yarn because it'll pool. You're thinking, show me the sweater, but I'm kind of building it up because it's I just am building it up because not everybody likes to knit sweaters in variegated yarn because it will pool, and you know what you're getting into when you buy variegated yarn. You know it's gonna pool, and so like, but I like it. And not everybody likes it, but I like it. And so I was just like thinking like it's gonna be so cool to have a variegated like pastel neon base and then two tonals that aren't variegated as a contrast that are really strong colors. Okay, my last disclaimer before I show it to you is that it's color work and it's kind of scrunched up and I haven't blocked it yet, but it will block out nicely even though it won't look really good right now. Okay. I love it so much. Okay, let me pull this out so you can see it. This is what made me switch from pink. I was initially going to do the flower in pink and the center in black, and this made me switch because the black contrasting this neon deliciousness, and this is the perfect Barbie pink. So I need to thank my mom for sending me her yarn for her sweater, because now her sweater is in my sweater, and that's really special. And I need to thank Tammy for that, and I need to thank, I mean, I did buy it, but thank you Wild Hand for mailing this to me. Like, it's like all the beautiful things all together. I just love it so much. So, okay, and then here I'm starting the high heel. I love this so much. I love this so much. I love color work so much. When I'm knitting color work, I'm like, why was I knitting anything else? Okay, I'm gonna share a couple more things. Okay. On my test knit video, you don't have to watch it. I'll tell you one of the things. I end the video by saying like, here's the things, or here's why I love knitting, or here's why I like test knitting. And one of the things is I said I liked learning. I mean, I shared other things, but that's one of the big ones. And I'm just gonna share something I learned from this. So every time I have done a color work test knit, I've learned something, just something. And with Tammy Gore's shawl that I test knit in January, February, I've lost track of time, I did color work flat for the first time. So I learned how to like purl color work. Just something subtle, just all those little things add up. So for me, this is my first time doing 3 color work. Now, other sweaters like the Soldana, you might be like, well, there's 4 colors in it. True. But at every row, I was only using 2 colors at a time. And on here, you can see for the daisy, on these where the daisy is, like where the center of the daisy is, on those rows, there was the main color, black, and then pink. And so for the first time ever, I knit 3 color work. And for a long time, I felt secretly like intimidated by that. Like I knew I could learn it, but there was a part of me that was like, but can I? Because I'm not a continental knitter. Essentially, I knit continental on my left hand and I throw with my right hand. And I just like, was like, what would I like? I felt intimidated. Like, what if I have to throw 2 continentals? Like, can I do it? You don't throw continentals. That didn't make any sense. What if I have to knit with 2 yarns in my left hand? Anyway, I watched some YouTube videos and I discovered that like just like knitting 2 color work, how there's lots of different options. There's lots of options for 3 color work too. And so I'm like learning like what works for me. And so what works for me is color dominance is the color that you want to pop. So what I did is I knew I wanted the black to pop. So I was holding that in my left hand and knitting that continental. And I knew I wanted this color to be like the base color, so I had that in my right hand. And then the pink I put in the middle. So like, and I just stayed consistent with that the whole way through so that the color dominance wouldn't like kind of get messed up or whatever. Anyway, it's so good. Okay, so that's something I learned. Okay, so my last little color work reflection. So Caitlin Hunter released a new sweater recently and it's gorgeous. It's a must knit. I have to knit it. I think it's called like the Alpine sweater. Laurel from West Maven Knits, who has a YouTube channel, knit a black version. That's where I first saw it and I was like, I love it so much. It's so good. And okay, so for the release of when Caitlin Hunter was releasing her sweater, she was doing a giveaway on her Instagram, and I thought her question was so amazing. So if you follow her, you maybe have already seen this question. I'm sure she got thousands of comments, so maybe you already know what the question was. But her question is, or was, what's your favorite knitting hack? And I thought, it's so broad. My initial like research herself was like, that's so broad. I can't believe like, it's just gonna be so random. But then like I was reading through the comments and I was like, oh, this is good. Okay. So I thought I'd share my knitting hack, my favorite knitting hack. Feel free to share your favorite knitting hack because I loved reading the comments and they were so different and varied. Okay, so here's my favorite knitting hack. So I don't catch my floats, ever. Okay, maybe you're not a colorwork knitter and you're like, what is catching floats? Catching floats are like these things here on the back. These are called floats. And as you can see, they get really long sometimes. And that's when you're like going from like one high heel to another. And a lot of times when there's really long floats like this, people catch them and it's like they like attach them to their knitting. And that is a really good thing to do. And I would say people really recommend that. And I don't. I just never do. Ever. Not in one of my color work projects. And so this is like bad knitting advice. Unpopular opinion, bad knitting advice. But if you're into unpopular opinions and bad knitting advice, here's some. So I don't catch floats because one reason you would catch a float is that you'd be worried about like your float snagging you or something like that. But I typically do my color work in garments and I've just never had issues with it snagging. And I have some really long floats and some, and I just, it's never been a problem. And yeah, so That's one reason why I don't. And I just haven't had a problem with it. And another reason you might catch a float is that it might like help secure your color work to like so the stitches are nice and stable when you're going. But I've really never had trouble with that either. So for instance, one reason why you might is these stitches where it's long, they might be like loose or something. But sometimes I just like, while I'm knitting, like just pull on it and then it's fine, and then it stays in place. And so I don't know, I just haven't had those problems, and I feel like my color work looks really good. I mean, not right now because it's squished, but it always blocks out just nice. And so I just don't. And I offer an alternative perspective about not catching floats, which is that like sometimes when people catch floats, like the color they're catching kind of shows through on the other side. I don't have that problem. And also like for a garment, particularly the way I knit my garments, I like them with like a lot of positive ease usually. It offers some drape that you might have been missing out on. So anyway, that's just a counter perspective. Anyway, actually, if you totally disagree with me, I would actually really love to know that, because I just really don't catch floats. Okay, but I'd love to know other knitting hacks too, or if you have other like unpopular knitting opinions. I love the unpopular knitting opinions. Did I talk about a singular sweater for 20 minutes? Yes, I did. Sorry. Okay. On to the next work in progress, which is my shawl design. And the disclaimer on this is it's all scrunched up on short needles, but it's turning out the way I want, even though it doesn't look like it. See, it's looking all scrunched up, but I'm loving it. I'm knitting this out of Purls and Postulates. Oh, I don't have the mohair here. I'll just show you the fingering. Purl and Postulates yarn. I lobe you. It's pink with like navy and gold and like kind of grungy green specks. So good. And I wanted to design a shawl that used one skein of fingering and a partial skein of mohair. Not a full. My hope is to use up the entire ball of fingering and just a part, like maybe half of the mohair, and it's working out like exactly how I imagined, which is really cool feeling. So I started off with garter. Oh, I'm showing you the wrong side. Oops. Garter, this kind of like chevron situation, and then this is the mohair, so I'm switching between mohair. I'm to the point where I need to do a little bit of math and weighing, because I'm trying to like use up as much of this as possible, and also like honor that people might knit at different gauges so they don't like run out and need a second skein. I just think like there's so many dyers out there. They have like such cool colors that they put on fingering and mohair. You could do anything with those, like a hat, a Sophie scarf, and you know, mohair and fingering weight socks. And there's so many things you can do, but it would be also fun, I think, to have a shawl like that. And again, it's looking kind of scrunched up and poofy, but it's laying out nicely. And there's I-cord edging. I'm so excited. And I'm just having a lot of fun with it. And it smells like campfire because I've been knitting this outside. We've been doing lots of campfires. We're like eating, you know, those like hot dogs that you make and s'mores. And we have these like little irons. I'm forgetting the name of them. Where you put the bread in up on top and you put something inside. And anyway, this has been more so than my other knitting projects. This has been the perfect like campfire knitting, because I like have gotten a flow of what's happening, and my hope is that others that would knit this would eventually get there too, because although, wait, make sure the right side. Although there's this chevron situation, like you can see how all the stitches line up. And so for me, like that's been a nice guide and of like knowing what to do, and it's a pretty easy thing to memorize. And okay, so here's my stitch marker. It was from Purl Smith. That's where I was the last time I recorded. I wish I was wanting to be done by now, but I'm not. And so because of that, I really like, I want the test call for, I want to be done, everything done with this on July 1st, so people have a month to test knit this. So I'm going to be wildly knitting, but it's likely that a test call will go out before the next episode, so I will actually have the test call for it below, which, you know, you're not really seeing a fully finished thing here, but I'm gonna crank this out hopefully over the weekend, and by the time you're watching this, hopefully it's done. And yeah, so if you're into that, the test call is linked below. And on July 1st, I'll probably also put it on Instagram and also put it on Ravelry. But if I get enough people applying from the YouTube channel, I may not post in those places on July 1st. So my YouTube people get a first chance before other people to apply. Okay, my last work in progress is for the make along. Every summer I want to make a tank top and I don't. And so the make along was like sort of an impetus for me to finally like buckle down and make myself a tank top. And I'm so glad that I am, but it is sort of getting the back burner because I'm test knitting and designing, but I am working on it and it started and it's going to be done soon. So I'm to the point very closely. Let's see here. I haven't got a lot done since I last recorded. So the rainbow is where I was last time. So you see I've maybe put like a couple inches, maybe an inch. So I'm working on the body of the outline tank, and it's, I think you knit it bottom up and then you kind of split to do the quadrants, like a little V, and the back and the back. And I'm definitely to the point in the pattern where it suggests splitting off. I'm past that. It suggests like a 9-inch length, but you can make it any length you want. And I think 9 inches might be a little too cropped for me because I'm already kind of unsure if I'm going to wear knit tank tops. So I definitely wanted to put this on purl strings, and it's hard to try on a bottom up thing, but try it on and see like exactly how much length do I think I want. I know that I would probably enjoy wearing this over a dress, so I'm thinking I probably do still want it cropped a bit, but 9 inches feels like too short for me. I think my happiest cropped length, maybe that's not a crop length, but on my body, 10 to 11 inches feels like the perfect like short sweater. So I think I want to do this at least 10 to 11, but I'm making some progress and I'm ready to, I think, do the splits where you start knitting flat. I've been knitting in the round. I've been alternating my yarns at this point. So I had 2 hanks of yarn from Arkansas Yarn Company, and maybe they were dyed at the same time, maybe they weren't. Even so, speckles aren't necessarily going to be perfect between 2 different skeins of a hand-dyed yarn, so I like to alternate my yarns. There's so many ways to alternate your yarns. Alternating your yarns means it's like I'm knitting one row with one ball and one row with the other. So as you can see, this one ball is smaller than the other, so I mostly knit my sweater out of one ball, and then rather than just harshly switching to another ball, I alternate the yarns. And I do that to kind of fade in the new color, and so then if I was to knit this flat now, it wouldn't be like a harsh line. It avoids kind of that color switch. One way you could like alternate yarns is just carrying the yarn up the side, and then the con to that, though it's easy, is it leaves kind of a ladder on the back. The other way you can alternate yarns is using something that people call helical knitting, which I think is such a humorous name because all knitting is helical. That's actually like when we knit in the round, like it's all helical. Like, yeah, okay, so that's a math joke. Hopefully you enjoyed my math joke. So So the way that I do it, and I've made a tutorial here on YouTube that I've called the Easy Alternator, that will be linked below, is you don't change your beginning of round, which is what I didn't really like about helical knitting, even though all knitting is helical, but what people call helical knitting. And I didn't like the laddering up the back of the other method, so that's this method here. And I'll just show you the back of it. And what I mean by that is, you can see here is where I joined in my new yarn, and I'll of course have to weave that in, but you can't see that I've been alternating yarns, and I don't have to change my beginning of round. It doesn't matter for an item like this so much, but it would matter if you were knitting color work or something with a lot of texture. Then you'd have to use your brain a little bit more, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But anyway, oh, I've got a runaway ball over here. All right, so many works in progress, but as you can see, lots and lots of fun, just so much fun. And Matilda's recently asked, it's my 5-year-old, Matilda has recently asked me to teach her how to knit. And so she has a little project going, and I was gonna show it, but I didn't bring it out here. So maybe I'll have her show it. If I don't end up getting footage of her for this episode, I'll for sure try to have her next episode, but that's been really fun. Since I last recorded, I went to Naughty Lamb on Worldwide Knit in Public Day. And part of me was like, I'm going to a yarn store on Worldwide Knit in Public Day. I should be going to a park, hanging out with friends, knitting somewhere out and about. And yeah, but when I went to Naughty Lamb, they were sitting outside. And so that was public, and people you could see were driving by what's going on with all these knitters? And yeah, so I'm glad I went. I was very nervous beforehand because I was I don't really know anybody, and I don't know, I was nervous about talking to new people, but I also wanted in-person people to knit with. So Kyle and Matilda went swimming, and I went to Naughty Lamb. It's the t-shirt I'm wearing. I also have an interview of that yarn store here on the channel too, if you're interested. I'll link that below too. And yeah, so I'm really glad I went. When I was there, there was a pop-up, a trunk show inside of Naughty Lamb for bags. And I went in and I looked at the bags, and I was like, those are cute. And then I came out because I was like, I have so many bags, I don't need another knitting bag. But then all the people that were sitting under this tent, I can't say all because I didn't check every single person, but a very large proportion of people, if not all, had a tomato moon bag, which was this pop-up shop. And I was listening to them talk, and they were going on, and it was warming my heart up to wanting to get another bag. And then here's what put me over the top, is that this particular style of bag has pockets on the outside, and you could put your patterns in, and people had knitting, and they had their little bag, and their little patterns were sticking out, and and I crumbled. And I went in and I bought one. Okay, check this out. This is what sold me. These little pockets here, this style, I left the tag on so I could remember. This style is called the Oberon. And there's these pockets all around. And you can imagine folding your pattern, boop. People had stuff, they were using it almost like a little purse. So cute. Then it has this, and I love drawstrings. I love a drawstring. Look at this, with ribbons. But then there's these nice little handles too. So cute. And it's nice and sturdy. It's almost like a basket. So I open it up, and loved it. Then the big question was, what was the print that I wanted? There's just so many prints. So I felt like this print was very me, minus the cat. I don't have a cat. So minus the cat, everything else is like me. I like cats. Okay, so there's this typewriter, a mug, candles, books. I love typewriters. I still have my typewriter from my childhood. I was very into Murder, She Wrote, and Angela Lansbury, and I, like, for my 6th birthday, asked for a typewriter, and I still have that typewriter. If you've watched any of my Vlogmases, you might see the typewriter because I always, like, type out Christmas cards and things like that on the typewriter, and thank you notes and things like that. So that's my acquisition since the last time I recorded, and I love it. I don't have a project in it yet, but I will someday. We are to the Sip Sip Knit segment of the episode, and it might look a little darker out than earlier when I was out here recording, and that's because some time has elapsed. I recorded all my episode in chronological order, but the Sip Sip Knit segment, because I was brewing my tea and, like, gonna be cozy, like talking about knitting, thinking about maybe even knitting on the porch, and time got away from me. I didn't even get to drink my tea that I made, and I had to take Matilda to an appointment to get fitted for a new violin. She's outgrown her current violin. And it was a really cool experience, but, like, I lived some life before coming back to here. And then my tea was cold, and so I've had to heat my tea up, so I'm not sure how this ambiance is, if it's cozy or not for knitting. I'm not even knitting, but I'm going to. I thought I would share my tea. I'm drinking s'mores chai. I won't read all the ingredients, and I've shown this before, but I'm just completely obsessed with it. It's my favorite tea. I won't say the favorite tea. It's, like, in the upper echelon of favorite teas. I also like the peanut butter cup from David's Tea. But this, it contains hazelnuts. It has cocoa liqueur, cocoa butter. It does have marshmallows in it, some cinnamon, some brittle pieces. So it is a sweeter tea. Like, you don't have to put sugar in it. It obviously already has some. Look at that. It's so good. I always thought of this as a fall or winter tea, but I make and eat s'mores most in the summer, so maybe it's because it's a cozy tea. Like, I put cream in it. I drink it hot. It's like my very favorite evening knitting kind of tea, afternoon tea. I've also probably shown this mug. It's my favorite mug. It's called the Mama Matisse mug. It's made by a local maker by me from Joy Studios. I bought it when I was pregnant. See how it's got that little belly, and so I always think about being pregnant and buying it when I was pregnant. I love it. So I'm digressing. Sip Sip Knit. So for Sip Sip Knit, I put out on Instagram, like, if anybody had any questions, ask me some questions. So I've picked 2 to share. So let's see here, get my notebook. Laurel, who's West Maiden on Instagram and has Knit All the Things podcast. It's a new podcast, and I've watched every episode. If you're watching, hi, Laurel. And she asked a question that is a would you rather question that I love, and I pose it to you too because it's good, and I think it has potential to be divisive, like that people might feel differently. Like, would you rather knit the same pattern in different yarn or different patterns in the same yarn forever? So same pattern, different yarns forever, or same yarn, different patterns forever. I love a good would you rather like this. This one's delicious. So for me, like, my immediate, like, gut reaction, and I haven't wavered from it, is same pattern, different yarns, because while I knit socks and things like that, I consider myself like a garment knitter, and I'm like, I could wear the same type of sweater every day, but, like, mod it. Let's just take a classic design, like the Cozy Classic Raglan by Jessie Maed, or the Lento, or the Love Note, some kind of, like, classic sweater, and then imagine it with all the different kinds of yarn, like plain DK, fingering in mohair, fingering in Surrey, 2 strands of Surrey held together, like maybe even linen at a DK weight gauge. Like, we could get really creative. They would give it an overall look, and then you could do it like long sleeve, short sleeve. You could, like, even mod, like, by adding some texture in, unless of course the rules of this are like that you can't modify the pattern, but even still, I think I could have a lot of fun with one sweater pattern for the rest of my life. Let me know how you feel. I love would you rather questions. They are like the absolute best. Okay. From Instagram, I'm going to share this Nurse Knits question because this question is one that I get in real life a lot. And I actually read this question to Kyle and he laughed. Kyle, my husband, he laughed at it because we do get it a lot. Okay, not knitting related, but I've noticed in your videos that when you are driving as a family, you sit in the back. Is that to be with your daughter or is someone else up front? There's nobody up front and I'm sitting in the back, and I guess it's to be with my daughter for sure. But I didn't think anything was like kind of quirky or unusual about this, but the amount of times I've been asked about this, I'm thinking this must be an unusual thing. But I do sit in the back. I think my thought has always been like, I don't want her to be lonely, or like it's easier to read books to her, it's easier to play with her. But I don't always do those things. Like sometimes I'm knitting and she's like looking at a book, and so it is kind of a habit now. So, like, yeah, we definitely get asked that, and it's like also sometimes really funny here in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. It's different from where I grew up in the sense of like, well, there's probably a lot of things that are different, but one thing that's different is that there's a lot of like coffee stands where you can like get into a drive-through and like order coffee. And people often don't notice me sitting in the back seat when Kyle's driving, or they'd notice me like retrospectively when he's like handing the coffee in the back, and you can always see their looks are like, and they often ask about it. Anyway, let me know if you ride in the back seat. I think sometimes I get motion sickness in the back seat, so it has crossed my mind recently that maybe I should sit in the front seat. Maybe it would be better if you're driving like to the coast or something like this and it's like lots of windy roads. Sometimes I don't like the back seat that much, but I'm not really sure it would be better in the front seat. So anyway. Welcome to the personal section of the episode. If you've made it this far, consider liking and subscribing if you liked any of the knitting content, but there will be no more knitting content. In the personal section, I just share like what I've been reading and what I've been up to since I last recorded. So since I last recorded, I read a book and I wrote the title down because it's kind of long. Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And I think I would recommend this book to anybody who likes kind of like feminist self-help books, or like feminist like improvement books, like, or something that works a lot, like as a woman that works a lot, or like just, I really liked it a lot. So it had some strategies in there for me to like just like employ immediately. Like one of the strategies was talking about like the difference between stressors and stress, and then like, and talking about some strategies for coping with stress and some strategies for coping with stressors. And it seems so simple, but like it really was life-changing almost immediately when I was trying some of the things. So I loved it. I'm currently reading Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read Malibu Rising last year, or maybe this year. Actually, it might be this year. I can't even remember. But Malibu Rising was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and then now I'm reading Carrie Soto is Back. I'm not going to give anything away, but it's about a tennis player rising to fame, and Carrie Soto is Back. The title kind of like gives it away. It's about her coming back from a retirement, essentially. And I noticed that both Malibu Rising and this book are about kind of like rising to fame. And Taylor Jenkins Reid also wrote like Daisy Jones and the Six, which I didn't read. I want to read, but I've watched the show, which is like rising to fame in music, and I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And so I was kind of noticing that similar theme. And then as I'm reading Carrie Soto is Back, they mention a character, McReva, who was also Malibu Rising. And I was like, what? So I'm getting the vibe that Taylor Jenkins Reid does like kind of Easter eggs in her books, because they're not like sequels or series. But this Mick Riva was in both of the books, which I think is cool. Like, that's kind of nerdy stuff I like. It's hard for me to classify this genre of fiction. I was talking to my friend Kim about these books because she's reading them too, and it's like, it's almost like its own kind of fiction, like of like set in LA, rising to fame. Because it's not a rom-com, it's not like a dramatic, I mean, it's kind of dramatic. Anyway, other than fiction, I don't know how I would classify this other than rising to fame in LA. But I'm very much enjoying it. Like, I'm so glad I'm reading it. Okay. Also, since I last recorded, I met up with Lily from Merino e Vino. Now, she lives in Arizona. She's a yarn dyer in Arizona, and we've just connected on Instagram, and like, so I got to meet a knitting Instagram friend who was here in Portland, and we met up at my favorite place, the Oregon Zoo. I love to go to the zoo, and we have daughters that are like similar age, and so it was really, really fun. It was so fun. And every zoo trip I go to, there's something special. I think that's what I love about the zoo. Like, the last time I went to the zoo before I met up with Lily, like, we were there, and Amelia, the polar bear, was being fed, and when they feed her through the fence some fish fat, and they do it so that they can check her paws and things. And so she was like kind of just like standing, and they were like doing kind of like a little medical check on her every day, and that was so cool. And it was kind of raining because, you know, it's Oregon. And like, when it's raining, nobody's really at the zoo, so it's like a really good time to go to the zoo. And so that was just like really special. Okay, so obviously meeting Lily was amazing, and we had tons to talk about, and like, it's always like fun when you meet somebody and like you can't stop talking, you know, and you don't run out of things to talk about. And so that was obviously special. However, like the animal stuff, there were some cool things that happened too. Like, I'm a huge fan of Bernadette at the Oregon Zoo. Bernadette is a tiger who has diabetes, and like, tigers just in general sleep a lot, and then Bernadette sleeps a little bit more too. And so like, to see her out and about is really hard because you gotta catch right at the right time, you know. Like, if she's sleeping 16 to 20 hours a day, like, it is hard to catch Bernadette awake. Bernadette was awake, and not only was Bernadette awake, Bernadette was playing in this little pond with a ball, and it was like she was a kitten. Like, it was so cute. Matilda was like, she looks like a little kitten. But she's this huge tiger. It was adorable. And then Bernadette roared, and I've never heard her roar before, so that was really cool. Like, I just love that. And the girls, Matilda and Lily's daughter, they saw the elephants, and they were like snacking, and they were reaching for their snacks, and so I got a perspective of the elephants that I don't normally get to see, and so that was special. Okay, also, since I last recorded, we've found this like new place to eat, and it's so cool. It's so cool. And if you ever come out to Oregon and you're by me and you've got time to go out to the country, like wine country, let's do it, because it's so good. Okay, I almost don't even want to like tell people about it because it's so good and it's busy. Picture this, a farm. It's like a farm share, so you can have like a membership, and you get like fruits, vegetables, and even like a membership to picking flowers. And I think like having like a membership to like things like fruits and vegetables is pretty normal, but this place, like on Friday nights, also serves food, but like they're using ingredients from their own garden, and it's all fresh, and it's like not a lot of choices, like a finite small amount of choices, but the choices are like delicious. Like their guacamole, I've ate there twice now. It's just like so good. And then they have all kinds of drinks, wine, beer, cider, just tons of different kinds of drinks. And it's just been so cool because like you show up, and then like you can get a drink, you can walk around the gardens. They have like their their playground area, I don't even want to call it a playground because it's not like a traditional playground, but there's like a tree. It's very like Waldorf-esque in terms of a playground, if you're familiar with that. But it's just, we love it. We love it so much, Matilda and I. Like, Kyle loves it, but I think like Matilda and I, like, we are just like beside ourselves. Like, one of the places they have this like tree that's kind of overgrown, that's like almost like a play fort, but it's just like a tree that they've like, a bush that they've nurtured into becoming like a little tent. Like, huge fan. It's called our table. I was almost like not wanting to say it because it's like getting busy now, and I'm like, and like more and more people are finding out about it, and that's good for them. But it's like we went last Friday, like we had a hard time parking, and I'm like, I mean, I'm so glad they're busy, but okay. Also, since I last recorded, Matilda's had a violin recital. If I remember, and hopefully I will at the very end of this put her violin recital performance in. And when you watch it, you'll see her violin is way too small for her. So actually, when I'm done recording this, we are going to a violin shop and she's getting fitted for a new violin. Like, and her violin right now is a 1/32, and it's, the next size would be a 1/16, but I think we're gonna have to skip that size. I will be shocked if the violin shop guy is like, she needs a 1/16, because she's in desperate need of a new violin, and she's grown so much. And she's been busy with like lots of things. Like, we just this week did mermaid dance camp, and she's on swim team, and it's just been really fun. But I think the best part of the summer has been like, we've been like just relaxing here on the porch. Like, actually, like in front of me is like a tea party, like on the ottoman, and we've just been hanging out on our porch and our driveway and our backyard a lot. There's been lots and lots of campfires and s'mores and eating outside, and it's just been so fun. And like, we've been going to the library a lot. Like, I think this week we've gone to the library 4 times, and it's just like, like my favorite part of summer is like the relaxing at home and the library trips, and it's amazing. All right, we've made it to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for being here and being my knitting friend. I really appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Up we have Matilda. How about you come on up?
My name is Matilda, and I'm going to play Mrs. Twinkle.